This is Eric, and you're at Family Man Racing. Have an update for the all-wheel drive 6G75 3000 GT. I finally have my long-awaited adapter to go from a GM auto transmission. I intend to use a Powerglide to a 6G7X motor. So any 6G 72, 74, 75, it will work for that. So here she be. So it's two pieces actually. This piece here bolts to the back of the motor, and then these bolt together, and then the transmission bolts to this. Dowels for the transmission, it's doweled for these two pieces, and then it uses an off-the-shelf 2JZ starter, so any like GS300, SC300, IS300, etc., Supra obviously, and then comes with this adapter spacer. Also comes with flex plate, which is SFI stickered, drilled for a 6G, so that bolts to the back of the crank. This is the converter adapter, so this then bolts to the flex plate, and then the converter, you put your bolts through, whoops, right here, here. I have a 6-bolt converter. Most are 3, but you can get 6. And so yeah, this is everything needed to bolt a Powerglide or Turbo 400, a 4L80 to the back of one of those big black Mitsubishis. So some updates on this. This is my mock-up motor, 6G75, non-Myvec. Comes out of an Endeavor or Galant, 3.8 liter. I'm de-stroking to 3.6 with a 3.5 crank. Clean these valve covers up, modified a little bit so I could bolt on IGN 1A coils. I use 6G75 NGK plug wires and then cut those down and put the ends on for the IGN 1As. Welded on some fittings for a catch can, and then modified the stock thermostat housing to just be a crossover and blah blah blah. So GM sensor from Rife, and then this is a coolant pressure sensor, and then 16 AN come over to here, through there. Electric water pump will loop around and then feed into the back of the stock pump way down there. Oh, got Lexan in the windshield. So that's a tinted optic armor. Had to trim it to fit, and then I just painted the black surround around there. Also have a rear view camera. And then I still have to mount it, but there's the actual camera. But my rear view mirror is a camera. So I'm gonna turn off the camera. Oh yeah, hold on. We got some fancy stuff here. Well, not really fancy. Wheels are used, well used, had them for years. These are 17 by 9 wheels with a 27 by 10.5 by 17 Hoosier Pro bracket radial. That's for the front. And then the rears are some Aero wheels, single beadlock Steelies with a 28 by 10.5 15. And it's a 15 by 10, but it really measures almost 15 by 11, 2-inch backspace, and also Pro bracket radial. They fit, looks good. All right, so I'm gonna turn off the camera because I need to get this up on an engine hoist so I can take off the stand and bolt that all onto there and start putting it in here to see where we can position it, because I have to make the tabs coming off here somewhere for the motor plate, and then I'll have to make a front plate or some sort of engine mount for the front. But the goal this weekend is to get that on its own weight in there. Step one. This bolts up nicely. I wasn't sure if this was going to fit or if I was going to have to trim it, but it's fit. We'll see if the next component does. May not. Well, let's just find out. Ooh, looks like it just hit. So a little bit of trimming on both. Might take a little more than a little. Okay. Camera off. There we go. Just trim that out a little bit. Ended up cutting the top one off. I didn't plan on using that for the Powerglide, so I can have more room for a coolant hose to go through here. And so now we're good to go. So I need to bolt this to this, and then I'm going to bolt the starter up to make sure everything clears on the frame rail and the front diff. Starter on, looks slick. So far so good. Only thing that's annoying is that for some reason the whole thing is tilted, so I'm gonna have to jack it up instead of it being nice and level just on the engine hoist, but whatever. So far this is working beautifully. Looks awesome. Well, after hours of fiddling, this is roughly where it's gonna go. Probably need to square it up a little bit yet, but unfortunately I'm out of time. I have to go to an event for work tomorrow. But it's pretty high, but it's as low as it'll go. So more than likely, I'm gonna have to cut a hole in the hood for the front of the intake manifold, because I moved it a bit more forward than I originally planned. I need to be able to take the driver's side head off if there was an issue, and the head is past the block on the driver's side. So I have to move the motor plate forward about 1.5 inches, 2 inches from the firewall, and normally you could just set it against the firewall, but with that head way back, not gonna work. So it all had to move forward a couple of inches, which ruins some of my plans, but that's okay. There's still room to come off of here, loop it somewhere through there, over to here, turbo mounted there, and then that side will get chopped off and either go above or below the steering rack, and same thing, come around. The camera doesn't really do this justice. It looks small. It's not. And it looks like there's a ton of room. There's not. So this is twice what it looks like on camera, and this is half what it looks like on camera. I mean, there's still a lot of room here, but it's not as much as what the camera leads you to believe there is. Yeah, that might look a little more true to real life. Well, enough walking around and talking. Next will be to make some plates that go down to frame rail and this frame rail, so that can bolt in. Same for the other side. And then I'm gonna do front plate off of this head and another one off the side of the block and down to this frame rail. I think it'll clear the steering rack, and then that'll hold the front and back of the motor, and then I'll probably have to make a brace to keep it from moving back and forth. So motor's been in and out a bunch of times trying to figure out exactly where I should put it, up, down, left, right. etc. And I think I have a good spot. So now I need to make mounts for the mid plate. So thought process is I can make a bracket off of here, which will eventually connect to other stuff. And I can start on this side and get the holes drilled where I need them, and then support this side. This one's a little more difficult because it has to arch over the drive shaft and get to the frame rail over here. And it'll tie into the stock frame rail as well. But yeah, thought is make this side, then I can come over and make this side in theory. And then cross my fingers that I have it all at the right spot, because I also have to make a custom oil pan to fit all of this stuff. And if I'm off even 1/4 of an inch, then none of it fits. Okay, this side came out nice and pretty. I'm gonna have to do something with that top corner, that's ugly. But I was gonna tie it into that frame, so we'll see. But now it's just tacked in. So it's tacked there and there. If I had to, I can break it, but it seems to be good fore and aft. And I put a level across the two, those pins, can't think. Well, that stinks. I messed up my measurements and the whole thing is too far this way. So it all needs to go that way. But I think I can take some good measurements from here. The height seems to be pretty good. And then so I'll just break my welds and shift it that way after taking some measurements. All right, let's try that again. Not sure how I messed it up before, but we are that's the center. That's come on. Center, 2 inches over, and we are basically right there. Even after clearancing this a little bit, there's not a lot of room for the oil pan, so the whole thing has to shift over. But the drive shaft loop is also shifted over, and the rear axle center diff is also shifted over. Rear diff. It's right, got it right this time. Nailed it. Second time's the charm. So I just measured from my frame to the center of each cam gear, and it's level, which it should be because I leveled the plate. So really couldn't be unlevel up here, but I wanted to check. So next I'm gonna make some front plates. So one's gonna come over to here, and then I'm gonna do a temporary one down to that frame rail. Temporary because I need to figure out where the steering rack's going to go and then work around it later. But I can do it now just to get it in here and supporting the motor fully, so I can get the hoist out of the way and finish up those brackets there in the back to make those stronger, and good to go. All right, technically mounted. Again, that's permanent. That's temporary. I'm gonna make a permanent one on this side next, but hoist is out of the way. I welded a bit more on the bottom, but still need to brace those up, make it permanent. And then that's good for now until I finish the steering rack and all that kind of good stuff, to finish a more permanent one, which will probably do some funky curves. It should be a quick video for you guys, but it was a lot of work for me. Bit dirty, but it's on to the next step. Finally, for those following along, have a 6G mounted the correct way, because I finally got that adapter.